Hey everyone! Before we start, hit that subscribe button because Vanessa's story is about to show you how a cat can teach you to trust again when trust feels impossible. Let me take you to Austin, Texas, where this begins. Vanessa was a successful architect. 35 years old, her own small firm, designing beautiful modern homes for wealthy clients. From the outside, her life looked enviable. She had the downtown loft with floor-to-ceiling windows. The minimalist furniture that cost more than most people's cars. The wardrobe full of designer clothes. Awards on her wall. Her face in architecture magazines. Success by every measurable standard. But here's what those magazine profiles didn't show: Vanessa was completely isolated. She'd been hurt badly in her 20s. A relationship that ended with betrayal so complete it shattered her ability to trust. She'd spent the next decade building walls. Not just emotional ones, literal ones. Her loft was a fortress. Security cameras, smart locks, minimal furniture positioned so she could see all entry points. She'd designed it herself, and what it said was clear: keep out. She didn't have close friends. Had colleagues, sure. Business relationships. People she could have pleasant professional conversations with. But friends? People who knew her, really knew her? None. She'd convinced herself she preferred it this way. Safer. Cleaner. No risk of getting hurt if you never let anyone in. She worked 70 hours a week, went to industry events alone, spent weekends in her loft designing or reading or just existing in her carefully controlled space. It was lonely but safe, and safe felt more important. Her therapist, yes, she was self-aware enough to have a therapist, kept pushing her on this. You can't live your entire life afraid of connection. And Vanessa would nod and agree intellectually while doing absolutely nothing to change. Change meant risk. Risk meant potential pain. She'd had enough pain. March 2023. Austin was having one of those incredible spring days, 75 degrees, sunny, perfect. Vanessa was meeting a client at a coffee shop near the university. She arrived early, was sitting outside waiting, when this cat just appeared. A tortoiseshell, skinny but not starving, with a distinctive white patch on her face that looked like a lightning bolt. The cat walked straight up to Vanessa, jumped onto the chair next to her, and started grooming like she'd been there all along. Vanessa stared. She'd never been a cat person. Never been a pet person at all, really. Too messy, too unpredictable, too much responsibility. But this cat was just sitting there, completely comfortable, occasionally glancing at Vanessa like, yes, I'm here. Deal with it. And despite herself, Vanessa reached out and touched the cat's head. Just a brief pet. The cat leaned into it, started purring, and something in Vanessa's chest cracked just slightly. Her client showed up, the meeting happened, and afterwards Vanessa looked for the cat. Gone. She felt weirdly disappointed. Stupid, really. It was just a random cat. But that night, lying in her perfectly designed loft, she couldn't stop thinking about it. About that purr. About how it felt to touch another living thing that didn't want anything from her except a gentle pet. The next day, Saturday, Vanessa did something completely out of character. She went back to that coffee shop. Told herself she just wanted good coffee, but she knew she was looking for the cat. And there she was. Same chair, like she'd been waiting. The cat saw Vanessa, meowed once, and that was apparently an invitation because Vanessa sat down. They stayed there for 2 hours. Vanessa worked on her laptop. The cat alternated between sleeping and watching people pass by. Occasionally, Vanessa would pet her. The cat would purr. It was simple. It was peaceful. It was the most connected Vanessa had felt in years. This became a routine. Every Saturday, same coffee shop, same cat. Vanessa learned from the staff that the cat was a neighborhood stray. Lots of people fed her, but she didn't belong to anyone. She was independent, came and went as she pleased, but she always came back to this spot. Vanessa started bringing treats. The cat started sitting closer. By week 4, the cat was sitting in Vanessa's lap while she worked. Vanessa named her Juno. Strong, independent, a little fierce. It fit. She'd tell people casually, "Oh, there's this cat I see on Saturdays," like it wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal. It was the only consistent social interaction in her week that didn't involve business. The only relationship where she didn't have her guard completely up. Week 8, there was a storm. Severe weather, the kind Austin gets in spring, tornado warnings, flash flooding, dangerous. Vanessa stayed home, watching the storm from her windows. And she couldn't stop worrying about Juno. Where would she go in this weather? Was she safe? She'd survived before, obviously, but Vanessa couldn't shake the anxiety. It felt unfamiliar and uncomfortable. She hadn't worried about another living thing in years. The next Saturday, Vanessa went to the coffee shop as soon as it was light out. No Juno. She waited. Still no Juno. She walked around the neighborhood, feeling increasingly panicked and increasingly stupid for being panicked over a stray cat. And then she heard it, a faint meowing coming from under a parked car. She got down on the ground, looked underneath, and there was Juno. Hiding, scared, but okay. Vanessa coaxed her out, and Juno practically threw herself into Vanessa's arms. And in that moment, Vanessa made a decision that terrified her. She took Juno home. To her fortress. Her carefully controlled space that no one entered. She brought in another living thing, with all the mess and chaos and unpredictability that entailed. She stopped at a pet store on the way, bought way too much stuff, and set up Juno in her loft like she'd been planning this forever. Juno explored the loft with the confidence of someone inspecting property they'd just purchased. Knocked over a very expensive vase. Tracked litter across the hardwood floors. Sat on Vanessa's laptop while she was trying to work. And Vanessa, who would have lost her mind over any of this a month ago, just laughed. Actually laughed. Because Juno's chaos was breaking through her control, and instead of feeling scared, she felt alive. Here's where it gets interesting. Having Juno changed how Vanessa moved through the world. She'd have to leave work at reasonable hours because Juno needed dinner. She'd have to take breaks because Juno would sit on her keyboard until she paid attention. She started taking photos of Juno doing stupid cat things and sending them to people. Just casual, "Look at this ridiculous thing my cat did" messages. And people responded. Started conversations. Asked follow-up questions. Suddenly Vanessa was having actual social interactions that weren't about work. One of her clients, seeing photos of Juno, mentioned she also had a cat. They started talking about cat stuff. That turned into an invitation for coffee, not business, just coffee. Vanessa's first instinct was to decline. Make an excuse. Keep the boundary. But she thought about Juno. About how Juno had walked up to a stranger in a coffee shop and just trusted that it would be okay. So Vanessa said yes. That coffee turned into a friendship. Her first real friendship in over a decade. Which led to meeting more people. Which led to actually having a social life beyond work. Not a huge one, Vanessa was still introverted, still cautious. But she had people now. People who knew about more than just her professional work. People who'd text to check in. People who invited her to things. Connection she'd been terrified of but desperately needed. Vanessa's therapist noticed the change immediately. Whatever you're doing, it's working. You seem more open. More present. When Vanessa explained about Juno, her therapist smiled. A cat taught you to trust. That's beautiful. And it was. Because Juno never demanded anything except presence. Never judged. Never had an agenda. Just showed up consistently, chose Vanessa's company over solitude, and trusted that Vanessa would show up too. And in that simple, daily exchange, Vanessa remembered what trust felt like. What connection felt like. What letting someone, or some cat, past your walls felt like. Juno has been living with Vanessa for almost 2 years now. The fortress loft is less fortress-like, there's cat furniture everywhere, toys scattered around, evidence of life being lived instead of just contained. Vanessa's actually dating someone, slowly and carefully, but dating. She has friends. Real ones. She's even considering getting a second cat because Juno might enjoy the company. The woman who spent a decade building walls is now the woman who leaves her door open for the occasional cat sitter, who hosts small dinner parties, who texts friends pictures of her cat wearing a tiny hat. Vanessa told me something profound. She said, "I thought the walls were protecting me. But they were just imprisoning me. I was so afraid of being hurt again that I chose a life without the possibility of joy." Juno didn't tear down those walls, she just showed me what was on the other side. And it turns out connection is worth the risk. Love is worth the risk. Living is worth the risk. That's the lesson, isn't it? We build these elaborate defense systems to protect ourselves from pain. But in doing so, we also lock out everything good. Joy, connection, love, they all require vulnerability. They all require letting someone in. And sometimes we need a cat to show us that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. It's how we actually live instead of just surviving. So here's my question, what walls have you built? What are you protecting yourself from that's actually keeping you from living? And what would it take to start letting them down? For Vanessa, it was a tortoiseshell cat who sat in a chair like she belonged there. For you, what might it be? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me about the moment you realized your walls were prisons. Tell me what helped you start tearing them down. These stories matter. Someone reading this is living in their own fortress right now, convinced it's the only way to stay safe, and they need to hear that there's another option. Thanks for watching, everyone. Smash that like button if this resonated. Subscribe for more stories about cats teaching humans how to be human, and tonight, check your walls. See if maybe they are ready to come down. Your cat knows you're braver than you think. Until next time, remember, safety at the cost of connection isn't really safety at all. Meow for now.